Okay, so in today's class, we're going to talk about state management tools called Recoil, right? So the what is state management? The state management is a basically the concept, right, in web development that deals with the way an application handles data. See, so I just explained the shopping cart, right, and you have a lot of data, like you adding, removing, updating the totals, information, when where there is change of information, right, how we handle that one. So handling that kind of data which is changing, okay, if something is not changing, you can put in one maybe array and just display, right, that is okay. But when something is keep changing, you have to update, remove, delete, send somewhere. So that is called some kind of like a dynamic data. To manage that kind of data, we use some kind of state in React, right? Okay, so we have learned the use state for simple data. If so, maybe you are thinking, okay, use state is also for data management, right? Like to create a variables and manage data. But yes, if in the same component, if you have one component here, right? This is called app, maybe, okay, app, and you are doing count here, right? Like count or something like that. If this counter is only used inside this app, then okay, you can use state, right? Same place, you adding data there in the count and you just displaying in the same place, right? But you have different component. For example, just imagine, just take this one, component 1, component 2, component 3, 4, like that, right? And now, like you want to display that like data in component 3 maybe and 4 here, okay? So in that case, right, you don't want to, and these components are the child of component 1, C1, right, component 1. So how are you gonna like send the data directly here? Okay, how? So we in our React, we learn the context, right, context API, correct? Use context. So you create context, then you wrap the parent component, and then you're going to use that context in the children, right? It's the same concept but more efficient. Like in the context, right, everything will render. When you're displaying even data here, right, there is a lot of rendering happening inside this component, this render, right? And you don't want to do that, okay? That causes a lot of like a delay, right? The app is not efficient. So let's say you want to render data only in child 4, component 4. So how we can do that efficiently, right? So in that situation, the Recoil is one of the most like simplest form of state management, right? But also it can manage the complex data easily, okay? For example, shopping cart or maybe any complex management, right? You can use the Recoil. So again, it's similar to use context. You can transfer data, and also it has a lot of functionality like similar to use state, right? Or maybe just getting data or just updating data. So we're going to look at all that, right? So different functionality of the Recoil, okay? Just simply understand you have a lot of components. There is a child component and you want to render data in one of the places, right? Now you're going to use better state management tools called Recoil. That is all, right? Just simply understand that for now. So if like there are many other libraries also, right, for state management, like Redux, most popular one also, MobX, context API, like which we learned last time, right? Recoil, right? Well explained. Okay, so that is Recoil. Okay, so now what is Recoil? Recoil is a relatively new state management library for React application. It aims to provide a simpler and more efficient way to manage state, right, in large and complex React application. Here are some of the key concepts and features of Recoil, right? We must understand some of the like things Recoil use, right? So for example, here, right, in use state, let's say in use state, what happened? You give the initial data like this, maybe 0, and then you get back what? Two things, right? You get the array with the count, maybe that is a variable, state variable, and then function to set the count, right? You get something like that, correct? Let's call it const. So you have this state here, right? And then a function, to change this state. So we just use this function when button click or wherever you want to use, right? Just to update this count, this variable. And this variable, when update, the component will re-render and display that, right? So we have the state here, okay? But in the atom, how we create state, right? That is the point. So this state, look at this state, right? This state, this count, in Recoil we call it atom, okay? That is the atom, right? Atom is the state, the variables where data is stored, okay? So the atom has concept of an basically like Recoil has concept of atoms, right, to store the state, okay? Atoms, we call it atoms. Just remember the variable where data is stored is called atoms. The term, just remember this term, right? Atom is nothing but the variable, this count, same like that, right? We call it atom there, okay? Atoms can be defined outside of the component, right? So you can define this in separate folder just to structure it properly. We can look at that. Can be teleprompted to any component now, right? So same thing, like it can be transferred. The atom can be transferred to any component like C3, C4 directly, right? The only thing is, you have to wrap your C1 component with the root atom, right? Okay, the root component of the atom, or basically root component of the Recoil, right? You just wrap it here, right, with the root component, okay? This one, I don't know how to write this. Just imagine to wrap this one, right, with the root component, and we'll check that also later. So first thing, what we understand, atom is the smallest variable for the state, right? It means the component of the, not component, but just call it state or variable. That is atom. Okay, so that is atom, right? State in Recoil. Then next is selector. What is selector, right? Selectors is also similar like atom, but the selectors are like derived state. Derived means what? Derived means, first, what we said, right? You have the atom, you have the state already, right? Now you want to generate new state from the state. Let's say I have, for example, right, let's think like this. I can create atom, simple atom here. Let's call it atom 1, right? Atom or count, maybe this atom is called count, okay? Equal to 5. Now from this atom, right, I want to have selector. Let's call it count selector or count double, right? Double, okay? So I'm gonna, if I need to use this state, right, and generate new value to this variable, then in that situation I will use selector, okay? I will use selector and then basically do whatever I need to do with this, right? So this selector will be automatically update every time this count change. Whatever happen, my selector will also change, right? This count double variable will also be updated. So that's why the definition says, right, selector are derived state, means like the copy of the state, derived, right? Derivatives, right? Means it is just something created from the state or atom, right? So they allow you to compute derived state based on the value of one or more atoms, right? Or other selectors. Even selectors can be derived from selector itself. Like you have this count double selector already, the value, you can create new selector and do something again with that value, right? So in that situation, we use selector. Selector can also have asynchronous logic, making it easy to fetch data from API and store, right? So, okay, so we can use selector also to fetch data and store in the variable, right? Because it has, selector has asynchronous logic built inside already. And selector can be used as a async functionality, right? So you just fetch data from the API and then use that data, right? Or store in the, maybe in one of the atom, and I think no need to store it. Just put it in same variable. Like let's say this, maybe I have this product, right? This is a product. I'm using selector to get the product, right? Then I can just, that product, I will just take it in my component and then render it to display all the data, right? So you can use selector for fetching data also. You can do that. But again, remember, when you fetch data from the API, you're going to need Axios there again, right? Axios, and then you pass the link for the API and then get the data, right? So you have to do that all, I believe. Yes. So we'll look at that tomorrow. We're going to do, right? Maybe we'll try to use this, atom to fetch data also. I was thinking to use the use state hooks and all that, but we'll use this one. So why Recoil? Simplicity, performance, like improve the performance of your app, scale, right? You can improve the code or scalability. Recoil has scale. Recoil scale well with the large application by providing tools to manage complex state dependencies and interactions. So first thing is you have to install, right? So let's do that. Install the Recoil. So we're gonna use the same, the component we are using last time, right? So we just go back here. Let me see. And just install, right? npm install Recoil. You can do that. And then things to learn, Recoil. So in the Recoil, there are functions, okay? Remember Recoil root. What is Recoil root? What is atom? What is it? Use. We have seen use state. Here is use Recoil state, all right? Then use Recoil value. Then use set Recoil state, right? And then selectors. We talked about that already, right? You can find more here. So the root, Recoil root is used for wrapping the parent component whose child will get access to the, whose child want to access the atom, okay? Atoms is the state, right? We call state, or basically we call atom to our state, okay? And use Recoil state. This is similar to use state, right? If you just remove the Recoil, now you remember the formula of use state. It will give you back the array with the component and the function. Same thing. This will do the same, exact same thing, okay? It's gonna have the atom initial value and function to update the atom, right? Here use Recoil value, right? So like sometimes you just need a value from the atom, then you don't need to use this, you don't need function there, you just call this one and get the value simply in one of the component, right? Now set Recoil value. Sometimes you just want to increase or decrease the value, right? And you don't want to read the value. In that case, you can just use this function now to change the value of your atom. So this will have your atom and the function to change. But if you only want to get a value, use this function. If you want to only update the atom, then use this function. And selector is used to create derived atom, right? Derived atom from, basically, create new atom, right? Just think like that. So now, right? So I have here some code. Let's see. This is just an example of selector, right? What I just explained earlier. So let's start with simple example. Okay, again we're gonna do the to do, not to do, but basically maybe count, right? Simple count. So how you gonna organize your atom? So let's look at that. First, we're gonna go to the, like, just added the store here, right? Store. So in React or any state management library, when you use, right, you're gonna call it store. That is the main folder inside the source or wherever you want to put, right? Store, and then you can name it anything, but I call store so that store has all the variables, right? And then we are using atoms, okay? And inside the atoms, I just create count, right? Count. So what is atom now? Atom is the smallest variable, right? So let's create atom now. So import atom, right? Like this from Recoil. We have installed the Recoil. So in the count, what we need, we just need like count, right? With a value maybe 0. So in use state, remember use state, right? In your React, you had that 0 here, and then you get the, the return value of array, right? You get array return, which has two field. The first one was the variable or state, and second is function, right, to change the state. Okay. So here we have already this state, this count. Now in atom, how we create, right, this count? That is the point. Okay, so we just, like this atom is a function, right? So we have to run that. We call it like atom, right? And inside this atom, you're gonna add the object, right? And this object gonna have the first thing called key. So see, maybe you have a lot of state now, right? Lot of state. Each state has the name, special name, okay? So here I call this count, right? Count atom maybe, okay? And the default value will be 0 for now, right? We can do that, simple enough. So this atom returns something basically stored in a variable, right? So const, we call it count atom again, right? Atom, similar to our, like key name, right? Same thing. Now you're going to export that. Export. So for 1 second, right, I want you guys to think this is like a variable. Const count atom has a 0 value. Think like that, okay? Like const count equal to 0, right? So let us see how we can change this value. And then when this value change, right, how this will render to our component. So we need to experiment with, like all that property, right? Use set recoils, what is that? Use set recoil state, maybe selectors, all these things, right? All these functions, okay? So we'll see how we can use that. So we're gonna need different components for that. So our atom is ready. This is, like you just import in the object, basically give the name as a key, and then define the default value, right? Finish. That is one atom stored in this count atom, right? Now we're gonna use this in our component. Let's go back here. So we have recoil counter component here. So I'm gonna create a lot of component, right? So let's check here now. The first one is, like yeah, let's call it a recoil counter, right? So React arrow function export, this is the main component, okay? This is the main component, and then we're gonna add all the child right inside here. So what I said, like okay, fine. Just imagine this is your app, right? Main component, okay? So the second one, I'm gonna have the const counter. Let's call it counter. counter counter. You can keep it like this, arrow function, or maybe this normal function. It does not matter here. So this counter function gonna have maybe div. You have to return, right? So this counter function will be having a lot of like child, right? C1 component, maybe 3, 4, 5, whatever component. Okay, so div, why my auto suggestion not working? And then we're gonna add later the like component here, right? We're gonna add that. So let's add it some text, right? Some text. Now you call this counter component. You can put this all in separate file, right? But they all are component. Okay, even you don't have to export, right? You don't have to export. We're gonna use in the same sorry, okay, this one is exporting because that will be used other places also, right? For okay, what I have done here, see, for other component you don't have to put export. We're just going to use it within this recoil count, right? So this counter is the main component. The first thing, always remember, the main component must wrap, right, inside. Okay, so let's do that. So you have to wrap in a root recoil, right? So recoil root. Okay, that's the one, recoil root, and call this counter component. Done. So we have finished the wrapping now, right? We have finished the wrapping. The next thing is we're gonna create like similar to, like, remember we had component 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's create component 3 and 4 now, right? So the component 3 gonna display something. So if you look at here, right, like count render, maybe just displaying something, right? So I'll just copy this one. Okay, just make it quick. So here, count render component. For now, let me delete that, right? And this will return the paragraph with the counter and displaying the count, right? So how are we going to get count? Later we will check. So here will be count, right? Count. So now I'm going to wrap this component, basically send this component inside our count, right? As a child. Count render and done. So now look at here. See, this one is main component. You wrapping the counter, right? So that means all the child of counter now can access the variable, right? The atom. Okay, how? So the first thing is you have to import now that atom. Import what was that? The count atom. Let's import that. Count atom, right? From store atoms count. You have to get that state, the atom. You have to get that atom. Next is, so we just want to display now, right? We just want to display. So that will be use recoil value, right? Recoil, RECOIL, recoil value. Yeah, I think this is the one. Is the recoil value, right? See, just want to display nothing because I want to access my state, my atom, right? So I'm going to just use this from recoil, this function. And where I want to display in my count render component. So inside this component, you say const, let's call it count now, right? Give it any variable name. So use recoil value like that, call that function and pass your atom here. Which atom is that? Count atom, right? Pass that one. Done. See, now you have that variable here inside this count and you're gonna just display, see now how we access something from here, right? Inside the one of the child of this counter. We can access that. So, this counter is wrapped in the root, right? So the whatever is wrapping inside the root component, recoil root, right? This component, all children have access to the atom now. And now it depends what you want to do. You just want to get the value, use the recoil value, pass the atom, and you have the variable here. So this variable is just the state, right? So we should get like 0 here. So let's run this code and check now, right? So I will go to this. I just arrange a little bit, make it, install the tailwind earlier and then make this navigation bar. Click on recoil counter, right? And you see that count is 0. Look at that. We get there, right? We already have the count render. Now what we're going to do, right? We're going to create another component. Let's call it button, right? So const button component, and inside here we're going to return bunch of button, maybe 2 button, right? Return. So I'll just wrap in the maybe fragment like this and return the button, right? So button HTML. In React, what you return? HTML, right? So here let's call it increment, right? Like that. And another button will be decrease, right? Decrement. Now the point here we're going to learn is how we can change our atom. That's what we're going to learn, right? So we need to, let's call it cons, right? So there is 2 things now. Remember, there is either you can use recoil state, right? Recoil state. You can do that. So let's try with this first. So this is similar to use state. Okay, so that's why it will give you the array when you call that use recoil state, right? When you call that, you're gonna get array. Now you can call it here count and maybe set count, right? Like that. So you have count variable and function also, but you must pass your, because which atom you want to deal with, you have to pass that atom, right? Count atom. Done. So now unclick the button, right? So unclick. And I want to change the state, right? Set count like that. Okay, so set count will be so how we use that? I think, I don't know if we have to use let me check. Either we can use callback here or maybe just normal, right? Set count, maybe count plus 1. Let's do it that. Count 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 plus 1. So let's see if this is changing or not, right? Let's try. So this button must be the child of the, this will be wrapped inside this counter, right? Let's do that. Button. Okay, save. So we have this increment button. If I increase now, right? So this is working, correct? This increasing the, our state. So that means we can do the, we can work with our decrease also, right here. So unclick, callback function, and then set count to whatever in the count state and minus 1, right? Like that. So now if I click decrease, it is working, correct? See, it's working, right? So that's how you can use recoil state, right? But let's say you don't want, you are not using this count. I mean, we are using the count also, right? We are using the count in here, but maybe how we can just use the, like change the value, right? Use, what is the name here? This one. Use set recoil, right? So let's try to use this one, okay? So I have to import that first. Use set recoil, right? Recoil state. So here we're gonna just call that use set recoil state, and you must pass that count atom, okay? But now you're not gonna get this whole thing, right? You're just gonna need like you're just gonna get like set count, something like that, okay? You're just gonna get maybe set count. You just get function, right? Fine. So this set count function here, right? Now it will not work like this because we don't have variables. So how this work, right? How this work is inside this function, you will be let's see this function when you execute, right? Set count updater, right? Okay. So just get callback. So what is the previous value, right? Like that. And then you return it. Previous value plus 1, right? So this previous will be the atom, whatever is the initial value in the atom, right? And then you adding 1 to that one, that is all, okay? And same thing here will be, you have to pass the callback function, and that function will get the atom value, we call it previous or maybe count, whatever you can call it, and then previous value minus 1, right? So let's see if this will work. So increase is working, right? And decrease is also working, okay? So in that case, like what is happening here is, we can, if we're not using like, this has more improvement, right? For example, if you don't need the atom, right, that state, then just use this one, just use this one, because it avoids like a lot of rendering behind the scene, right? Just improve the code, okay? That's why it says if you don't need the state, then use the, when you are updating, right, just use this function. That is what I recommended. Okay, so we have looked at the use recoil value, use recoil, right? Use recoil, use state recoil, basically use set recoil state. Also we look at the use recoil state, right? Or use state replacement, we look at that. The last one is selector. So how are we going to use selector now, right? Let's work on that. So let's go back. I mean, selector is similar to atom, right? So we must go to our atom here, and then we have to import that first, right? And then let's say I want to double the number, right? Something like that, double the count, okay? Whatever is the count, right? Whatever is this value here, okay? I want to increase that. I mean, increase, right? Double it, or maybe like you want to display like a false, true and false, something like that. So for that we're gonna need, right? So let's see, I have code here, right? Okay, so just imagine this is similar to atom. So what we have to do now, const create atom, right? So let's say even selector, even value selector, right? If there is even, display something, or maybe do something, right? So just give a name of the variable or atom name, event selector, like that, equal to selector, right? SELE selector, and same thing, you're gonna pass the object, and you have to, because this is atom, so the rule is give the key. You must have the unique name, right? And call it event selector. Just use it the variable name, right? It's better. Same name, event selector, comma. Now the next thing will be the get function, right? Let's see. Yeah, the next thing is the function, because why this, what is this atom is the derived atom, right? Something you want to do it here from this value. So that's why something, to do something, what I told you all the time, if you have an action, there will be always function, right? So we call it get, we store in the get property, right? Like that. So this is the function. This function gonna get a property called props, or maybe you can destructure it like this and call it get. Okay, so if you see this structure, that is just the props value, right? Props dot get. Let's say I will put props here, and then I'm gonna let's say I want to get the value, right? So you can name it anything, count, whatever you can name it, props dot get, and inside you have to pass this atom, right? Because from which atom you want to derive, you have to pass that one. So from the count atom. Okay, so whatever is the count value, that is right now 0, from there I want to use it, right? So now I have the value here, whatever the value in the count atom, I got it here, and now I'm going to use that, right? So I'm going to return it, whatever in the count mod 2, right? So it will give remainder, like number mod 2 will give me remainder, either 0 or something, right? So 5 mod 2 I will get 1, 4 mod 2 I will get 0, right? So either I get 0 or maybe 1, right? So now you can use this value to do whatever, like let's say you want some kind of a Boolean value, right? Or check with the, like if that is 0 or not, return if that is equal to 0, right? So it will return true or false, You get the idea now, right? So we just export, we're going to use this now, event selector, right? We're going to use that. So let's export it. Export event selector, fine. So our event selector atom is ready. That is all, you have to do, right? Sometimes you just have simple variable, a default value. Sometimes in the case of selector, this is the formula, right? So if, just think like this, if there is a state and you want to use that to do something, right? That variables, and create a new variable, then that is what we are doing with the selector. So let's go to our component here, right? And we're going to create something, call it, here I have like event something created, right? Event selector, event counter render, right? So let's add normal function. I'll just add even even, call it any function name, okay? Count render. So you want to display something. Is that, yeah, that is fine, right? So how are we going to use, you have to import, like remember we exporting, right? Event selector, we must get that here. So let's get it. It is coming from the same store, right? So event selector, we got that, and then we're going to use it inside here. So event count selector, this is a component, we have to, again, same rule is same, okay? Let's put this component somewhere below here, right? Event count render component, okay? Inside our main component called counter, right? So now you must get a value, right? So is even, just call it anything, how are you going to get value? Same rule for the atom, use recoil value, right? And now you pass the atom. What is the atom name? That is event selector, right? Fine. So you have the value here, and what you want to return it, just return maybe. Now you can check, add more logic, right? And do it, like test if equal to 0, then do something. If not, do something. You can do that, right? So here paragraph, and we'll check is even, right? Something, I don't know what is that value, maybe 0 or 1, something like that, right? So if there will be number, most likely you will get true, right? If that is 0, you're going to get false. So when there is number, then you're going to get true value, correct? So let's make it equal to 0, right? If that is true, if that is equal to 0, then you will get true, right? then that is even number. So you can display here is even, even number, something even number, right? So let's, or when there is odd, maybe just add it null. Okay, fine. So we are returning this. Let's check now, right? Let's go our add component here. So right now it's 7, right? So you don't see anything, but let's increase this font size. Class name text, make it maybe Excel, right? And text red, make it 500. Fine. So let's say 8. When I get increase 8, look at this, is an even number, right? This component just pushed in, I mean just display the value, right? Now increase 9, this component is not displaying, it's null now, right? Okay, so see, we can use, selector to do something, right? And use that value wherever we need. So that this selector atom is based on what? Derived from the main atom, main component. Okay, that is what we have to understand. And selector is also used for fetching data, right? So I mean we can create another, basically we can just add another selector here, right? Something like a export mode, maybe we call it const, let's call it product, right? Or yeah, let's call it product list, like that, equal to selector, right? And then you're gonna give it the key, will be product list. Now here we're gonna add the, like, I don't know what we can call, right? We're gonna call it get, and then this will be a function, right? So this function should be async, and then here we're gonna we need Axios. I think we have to install Axios, right? And then get that const maybe data, right, equal to Axios. So we don't have Axios. Okay, we have to install Axios and then paste the data, right? And then use that data. So I think we have to install Axios. Okay, so without that it's not gonna work. So let me just install npm install Axios, Axios, right? Okay, now you can import the Axios here. Axios, right? Then you're going to use it here. So Axios, and you can await this if you want. And now you're going to pass the fake API data, right? So what is that? Fake API product, right? I think this one. So should be this link to get all the products. You pass here. I hope that will work. I have not tested yet. Okay, so let's try. And then what we do here, so we have this get, right? That is all we are doing with this. We got the data, right? And then yeah, so I think we can just return that data, return data. So must be inside. Okay, we cannot do outside. Return data, like that. Now we're going to use that this product list we're going to use, right, in our here. So we just create like simple component function, call it product list, just product, right? Maybe products, So if you want to get the, like get the data, right? What we do, const, let's call it products equal to what is the use recoil value, right? Like that. And we need to import that now. Remember that we have to get that atom. So the atom is here. So that was product list, right? That is the atom. And we gonna pass it here, okay? Product list. So we have the product now, right? We just, this is the part of our, this family, this counter family. So just maybe below here, just call it products component, okay? And try to console log, right? Let's console log this, okay? We need to return it, return something. Return, maybe let's do it div, right? For now, let's say we don't have card yet, product card. So let's add a product, right? And call it a list of products. But I'm just gonna console log, okay? Let's not do that anything here. Console.log products, products, right? Products, and see what we get back, right? Let's try to check there quickly. That is all I want to see. So if we go to the console, we get anything. Let me expand now. Not available, right? What is that? Let's refresh. Okay, there is so much error. Okay, let me do one thing, right? Go back here, and I don't know if this is okay or not. So I think return, let's call it response, and I think in the response dot data, maybe, right? Or maybe we can just send it empty object, okay? Array. And refresh the page, and we get nothing, right? So increase. Okay, I hope that is okay, right? Let's check quickly if that is API working. Oh, because I want to get the list of API. And what happened here? Delete. Okay, no, I just need this one. Okay, so that is fine, right? Fake store API.com, right? That is fine. Axios. So await Axios. That's okay, but I don't know why it didn't work, right? We should get that response data here. Okay, so let's see. Go back here again. Use recoil value, and we pass the product list. That is our atom, right? And then we try to console log here. So list of products, is that working? The list of products there, yeah. Okay, so why it did not work? Let me put that component maybe on the top, right? Let it run first, okay? Before anything, right? Yeah, so there is something, but hot update, right? Connected, but we did not get anything. So there is no data in console log. Okay, guys, that's fine. So I will figure out. I mean, we can fetch the data using use state hook. Sorry, use effect, right? But I want to use this also, okay? Render. I have never used that before, but we will use it, okay? All right, so let's keep it up to here. What I want you guys to do is just go through this and understand the basic, right? What is atom, how you can create atom in your React project, how you can import the atom, and then use the different functionality, right? Getting the value of the atom, setting the value, like update the atom. If you need to display the, I mean, if you want to just like display, okay, that is get value, right? And then set value also, and plus you can use that set recoil, right, also, so that you have value plus you have the function to update the value, right? And selector also. So try to understand in the base level, right? Like what I have done, just try to understand that, okay? So that tomorrow when we use that fake API, right, and we're going to just create new projects and work through the complex use case of this recoil, right? We'll try to work on that. But if you understand the atoms and all this functionality, the concept will be same, okay? Only maybe our initial like default value will be let's say in this case is 0. Maybe we have array where you store the product in items, right? Maybe you're storing other stuff, okay, inside the array, right? But that is data, okay? You can have any kind of data, right? The point is how we getting that data and how you updating, right? That is the point. Okay, so let me stop here for today class.